Thank you so much for attending my PowerPoint presentation on Zeus, the Killsteal merchant. Zeus is a ranged intelligence mid-character whose most iconic feature is his ability to profit off the blood, sweat, and tears of your teammates by taking kills that you didn't earn. This trait primarily comes from his ultimate, Thunder God's Wrath, that delivers a magical nuke to every enemy hero on the map, regardless of where they are or whether or not you can see them. His ultimate represents just one of many methods that Zeus has for shitting out infinite magic damage, and the one you'll be picking up at level 1 is Arc Lightning. This ability deals a small magical nuke to its primary target and then jumps to up to 11 units, dealing the same amount of damage to each one of them. It has a low mana cost of 105, but the real draw is its 1.6 second cooldown, basically making it an alternative to your right click, and later on, after you pick up an Aghanim Shard, they can become one and the same. Next up is your W, Lightning Bolt, which is a single target magic damage nuke that deals an absurd amount of damage, mini stuns, and also grants True Strike in an area. It's technically a ground target spell with a small search AoE, meaning that you can use it to track down enemies trying to juke through trees if your ultimate is already on cooldown. Not to mention, you can use it to farm D-wards and make your supports mildly upset. And finally, as a squishy mage character with a ton of offensive utility, it's only natural that he would have an amazing defensive tool in Heavenly Jump. This ability is basically a Force Staff that you can only use on yourself, and when popped, it will also emit a slowing shock to a single nearby enemy unit. It's good to escape a gank in a pinch, and you can use it in the middle of a team fight to hop up a nearby cliff, because the cast ranges don't matter and the mana costs are made up. Zeus currently has two facets, and both of them are pretty good. The first is Livewire, which is closely intertwined with Zeus's innate static field that deals a percentage of the opponent's current HP whenever Zeus hits them with an ability or a right click. Livewire buffs the numbers and it scales depending on how close Zeus is to his target, maxing out at 200 HP, which is way too uncomfortably close for a hero like this. The next is Divine Rampage, and if you're a clip farmer, then this is the facet for you. Instead of dealing all of its damage at once, your ultimate will instead strike enemy heroes in the order of how little HP they have, and if you ever get a kill, the remaining strikes will have 25% spell amp. The idea is that if the enemy team is all low, you can hit R, and in a matter of about a half a second, you will suddenly get a Rampage, profiting off of that spell amp every step of the way. If Dota 2 had Steam achievements, getting a Rampage with this facet equipped and pressing a single button would absolutely be one of them. Overall, Zeus is a very straightforward magic damage dealer, and if you're interested in learning Position 2, I highly recommend giving him a try. And for the rest of us, he's an amazing pick to have in your back pocket for when you roll Q into mid and no one is willing to swap with you. And as for his lore, he's Zeus, the Roman god Zeus. If you know him, then you know this guy. The only reason he's even here is because he gave up his immortality in order to prove to Hera that he can stop being a little horny boy all the time. Once he can prove that, he can go back to being the king in heaven, but until then, he has to stay down here and occasionally hang out with his estranged son Mars over in the off-lane. Now, Zeus is not the only Dota 2 hero dedicated to dealing magic damage and nothing else, but what makes him stand out is the sheer variety of ways in which he can do it. His Q is a single target bouncing spell that will allow him to clear out massive creep waves in the blink of an eye right before his carry is able to blink in and farm it for himself. That 1.6 second cooldown also makes it your best bet for proccing static field over and over again, which is why Zeus, despite only dealing magic damage, is actually a solid pickup against really tanky lineups. Now your Q is good, but it lacks a little bit in the utility department, which is where Lightning Bolt comes in. At level 4, your W ability is basically half of a Laguna Blade, but with 1/10 of the cooldown and a quarter of the mana cost. You're usually maxing it second, and when you do, you can walk to a side lane and vibe check the shit out of a support by removing half of their HP with a single basic ability. Now, in addition to being a great magical nuke, this ability also grants True Sight in an AoE whenever you cast it, even if it hits a hero. This gives Zeus an amazing amount of utility, and also makes warding against him for the mid lane a total pain in the ass. When your ulti is on cooldown and you don't have much else to do, it's a reasonable thing as Zeus to just walk around the map hitting W on the ground and hoping you find a ward. And of course, with great dewarding responsibility also comes great aggravation for enemy invis heroes like Riki or Bounty Hunter. If you're a relatively recent player and you're still in the MMR trenches where they've yet to invent Dust of Appearance, you can pick up Zeus and just start solving the problem yourself. And last is your ultimate, which is such an insanely versatile and iconic spell that I've chosen to dedicate an entire slide to it and only it. Now, if you open up Dota and go to the settings menu, you can find a section that is entirely dedicated to swapping out the lines available in your chat wheel. Some of these are fairly simple, such as pointing out that an enemy hero is missing, indicating that an enemy ward might be somewhere, or asking your position 5 to feed you their final mango. But if you scroll all the way to the bottom, you will notice that Zeus ult now is a default available chat line, the only hero-specific one in the entire game. And the reason for this is that Zeus is actually the tutorial hero for learning how to communicate with your fellow Dota player. Now the default use case for this, and the reason why it's available as a default chat wheel option, is because there are going to be ganks where the enemy hero is able to escape with around 200 HP, and as a Zeus, it's your job to finish them. But the real reason that you're going to be pressing this ability is because your team is ganking a hero with a kill streak and you decided not to show up, and to instead hit Q on a Hellbear camp over and over again, but you still want all that golden XP. When that happens, you can wait for your team to get their hands dirty, bringing the hero below the kill threshold for your ulti, and then hitting R at the last second to claim a bunch of golden XP for a job that you didn't even do. Now as a mid hero, you always have the option to say that you did it because the golden XP would be more useful on you, and you can ping out how far you are from your Aghanim Scepter to help soothe their broken egos. But let's keep it a buck for a moment and admit that you could have been 0-5 and transitioning to your team's second position 4, and you would have done that shit anyway. Now securing ganks and securing ganks are the primary features of this ultimate, but in addition to that, it's also an amazing vision tool. For example, if you suspect that the enemy team is doing Roshan and you haven't learned how to use scan yet, you can pop this ability in order to spook them, potentially making them leave the pit. And if it turns out you hit it for no reason and they weren't doing Rosh, you can immediately ping to your team to go do Rosh. I have a Patreon available with a bunch of fun little bonuses depending on how much you'd like to help support the channel. At the lowest tier, you get all of my videos ad-free as soon as they're done uploading, and at the highest, I've recently added replay reviews to the options. Of course, if you're not interested in me roasting your gameplay, you can instead opt for a custom audio recording, an MS Paint doodle, or even a handwritten letter that I will send to your house. Link is in the description if you'd like to check it out, and if you're already a patron, thank you very much for your continued support. Now if all of this sounds interesting to you, or you're a Huskar player who wants to try rage baiting your own team for once, here's how to play Zeus. Now first, I have some good news to share, and that is that Zeus is one of the easiest position 2 heroes to play in the entire game, to the point where I think if you're going to try to learn mid, this should be the very first hero you pick. His laning pattern is very straightforward, where you want to use your Q in order to secure last hits and harass the enemy mid laner at the same time. You're also a bottle hero, which means that you'll not only learn the basics of rune control, but you'll also learn how frustrating it is for your position 5 to take the jungle bounty rune at 4 minutes for no reason. You also don't have to worry too much about your macro game or rotations, because your ultimate means that you can contribute to ganks without ever leaving the warm embrace of your tier 1 tower. Now I've already mentioned bottle, and the rest of your item build is also going to consist of methods of keeping your mana pool as full as possible. Arcane Boots and Kaya are necessary for mana regeneration, and then you pick up a shard so you can use your right clicks instead of arc lightning to farm. Your one piece of pure utility will be your Aghanim Scepter, which gives you access to a brand new ability, Nimbus. This is another global ability that plops down a circle on the ground that will occasionally cast lightning bolts on a target within that circle. You can use it to cancel TPs, and in conjunction with your ult, you can deal a ridiculous amount of magic damage that will only get worse when you eventually pick up your refresher. Zeus is not a very mechanically difficult hero, but by picking up a refresher, you can get accustomed to the act of hitting a bunch of buttons very quickly. This is because a fun fact about Zeus that you will learn after a couple dozen matches is the fact that you are actually a teamfight initiator. Whenever you feel a fight about to start, or if they begin initiating on another hero on your team, hit the R button immediately, not to steal kills, but to immediately learn where every single enemy hero is and what they're planning to do. And in the best case scenario, your ultimate will even clip the blink dagger of a Tidehunter who will proceed to ravage nothing. Throw out your Q and W, put Nimbus on a vulnerable target, use your refresher, and then do all of that again. The timing for this combo is a lot more lenient than something like a Lina with Ags and Refresher, but it will introduce you to the key mid lane concept of mashing your keyboard like a Tumblr user whose OTP just got confirmed. And luckily for you, your play pattern won't really change after that. Just stay in your backline, initiate as well as you can with your ultimate, and hit W in order to continue dewarding deep into the late game. Even in an awful match where you get completely dumpstered in lane, you, as a Zeus, can always become a second position 4 with infinite sentry wards, and with observer bounties being what they are, that's not a terrible thing to be. I wrote a little bit about global spells, feel free to read it if you like. Now if you're tired of losing to Zeus, or you have a firm belief that it should be illegal to call yourself an incel if you've been in a previous romantic relationship, here's how to beat Zeus. Step 1 is finding a way to avoid interacting with him in the lane. Zeus's Q is an amazing CS securing tool, and his right click isn't bad either, and so for a lot of heroes, you sort of just want to ignore him as well as you can. Heroes that can clear out a creep wave in just a spell or two are amazing pickups, and I recommend Storm Spirit and Viper. The former because you'll be able to jump the shit out of him in the mid game, and the latter because you are born with a built-in cloak. Speaking of cloaks, anything that can mitigate magic damage will basically mitigate Zeus's entire kit. Items like Pipe of Insight or Eternal Shroud are great pickups, as are heroes with built-in counters to that sort of damage, such as Anti-Mage with Counterspell or Templar Assassin with Refraction. There's also heroes that are completely designed to counter the spellcasting archetype, such as the aforementioned Anti-Mage and the deadly Nyx Assassin. But when it comes to actually killing Zeus, you want the ability to jump him not just once, but twice. Heavenly Jump is a very powerful defensive tool, and the slow that it will impart unto you can make it difficult to just walk after him. As a result, you want heroes that can get on top of him and stay on top of him with multiple methods. Storm Spirit's Ball Lightning is a great example, as is Spectre with Haunt and Shadow Step. Items like Hurricane Pike and Harpoon are useful for similar reasons, but there's one item that counters Zeus above all. If you're anticipating ever being at low HP after a team fight, go ahead and pop a Smoke of Deceit as soon as it's time to walk away. With any luck, the Zeus player will hit the R key right after the smoke goes off, shielding all of you from any damage. At higher MMRs, the Zeus will humbly accept the outplay, but at low MMRs, they'll accuse you of cheating. In conclusion, Zeus is an omniscient hero, and you should absolutely play him. New Dota players tend to pick whatever they most recently lost to in their next match. Zeus is the ideal hero to have this experience with. Peace on planet Earth.